there, people, and welcome to another episode of Flight Box. My name is Ray. Thank you so much for joining me. As promised, over the last several weeks, I am here today to talk about Ironheart. I had just finished watching the first 3 episodes of the brand new Marvel Cinematic Universe television series, Marvel Television. That's a nice logo that they have at the beginning of these shows. Marvel Television, yes. Grand and glorious, the latest entry in the MCU television universe for sure. I have got a lot of thoughts, a good amount of thoughts with respect to this show and all of the absolutely bullshit controversy surrounding this show. But before getting into all of that, I want to remind everyone listening to the Flight Box that you can find this show and all of my other shows on the Flightcast Podcast Network at theflightcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts. That includes Apple Podcast, the Flightcast YouTube page, Spotify, and Pandora, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to this show, which typically comes out on Thursdays, talking about a new TV series. There will be this episode, and then next week we'll be covering the other 3 episodes of Ironheart that will be premiering next Tuesday. There's the Flightcast main show that comes out on Tuesdays. I just recently talked about Superman some more, if you will. Another James Gunn interview piece with Entertainment Weekly that I broke down, among other things, because it had some insightful stuff to say with respect to the future of the DCU and DC Studios, hopefully, if everything gets off to a good start. And then, of course, on weekends, we've got Flight Chat, the listener feedback show. There was a bit of a break a couple of weeks ago because of Father's Day, so it was an extra long episode of catch-up last weekend. Should not be the case this weekend, unless everyone decides to send in Dorsey-sized emails, or if John R. sends several emails that amount to a Dorsey-sized email. Either way, it's all in good fun. I love the feedback. It is a lot of fun to talk about the hypotheticals and to talk about all of the different movies, TV, and other sort of media that we all love to discuss. Thank you to everybody that provides feedback. Looking forward to more of it this upcoming weekend. All of that at theflightcast.com, or again, wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I want to take a moment to thank all of my supporters at patreon.com/theflightcast. Thank you so much. Hopefully you enjoyed my rant yesterday that I posted on Flight Speed. I revealed a couple of things that I haven't necessarily said topside, but I was also ranting about the review bombers and, how the disgusting, more delusional, culty people in our world are not only affecting Ironheart, but also Superman, right? It's cut from the same cloth. It's 2 sides of the same shit-stained coin in that regard. So, yeah, definitely ranted about that. Was trying to make it not safe for work. Yeah, it didn't work out. It's completely not safe for work. But if you are a member of patreon.com/theflightcast, you can totally listen to that right now as a flight officer. If you were curious about that rant and any other rants that I've launched into, or any other bonus episodes of Flight Review, Flight Box, and also Flight Report, the comic show, which I'm totally going to be posting some new episodes the next week, because I've got to read All-Star Superman and Superman for All Seasons before seeing Superman on July 8th at the Amazon Prime screening, if you will. You can go to patreon.com/theflightcast, sign up to be a flight officer. That'll get you access to all of the bonus content therein. Almost 200 pieces. I feel like I'm either close to 200 or over 200. I got to go back and count one way or the other. But either way, thank you so much for supporting patreon.com/theflightcast, and hope that you are enjoying all of the bonus content that is available there. All right, people, let's get into it. Ironheart is good. Flat out. Seriously, Ironheart is a good show. Like, it's a damn good show, truthfully. So whatever anybody's telling you, whatever bullshit you're seeing on social media, yeah, kick that shit to the curb. It's as bad, if not worse, than Rotten Tomatoes and Reddit combined. Ironheart is a damn good show. And you don't need to be woke. You don't need to be a woman. You don't need to be black in order to see that, right? Ironheart, at its core, is probably one of the stronger MCU shows made at this point in time. And believe it or not, according to the wiki, it's the 14th television series in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let's see. Let's go ahead and look at this list. I trust its math, but let's see. WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, What If, that's one of the ones I haven't seen yet. Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Ms. Marvel, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, all that was under Phase 4. How about that? So that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 shows under Phase 4, and then Phase 5, Secret Invasion, Loki, What If, Echo, Agatha All Along. It's also counting your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and Daredevil Born Again, of course, and then Ironheart. So I guess if we take out the animated stuff, so if we take out What If, and if we take out your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, then yeah. But all of that is covered under Phase 5. So, interesting. I feel like that's more than 14, but either way, look, Ironheart, for all of the review bombing and for all the nonsense, and, I'm sure there are people out there that have legitimate gripes about this show, but I'm pretty much in acolyte mode when it comes to this, and that means I don't want to hear it. Because the problem that I have with people that have gripes about the show, if you're somebody out there that does have legitimate gripes, or if you're arguing that, hey, not everybody's a racist and a bigot, people can have legitimate gripes about this show. Yeah, well, the problem that I have with that is that the racist and the bigots, especially on social media, are like out shouting you. Okay, so you need to deal with them first, or you need to put a disclaimer or something that says, hey, I am not a racist, I am not a bigot, blah, 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 right? And then after you put that disclaimer on your post, don't give us an argument that sounds just like the one that the racists and the bigots are giving out. The lazy ass arguments like, oh, Riri's a Mary Sue and she's in Chicago and she left a man. Whoa, almost gave out a spoiler before giving out the spoiler warning. Time out, real quick. Spoiler warning: if you have not watched the first 3 episodes of Ironheart and you want to stay in the bubble, spoiler warning, you may wish to skip this episode. This is a spoiler-filled conversation. I will be talking about what happened, not blow by blow, but I will be talking about details that happen in the first 3 episodes of Ironheart. If you have not watched it yet, don't listen to this episode yet, seriously. Or if you don't care about spoilers, go ahead. But this is your warning, your final warning. Spoilers from here on out. Okay, here we go. One of the complaints that I heard was that Riri Williams would never leave somebody to die in the comics. Whatever. Look, dog whistles. Okay, we saw this with The Acolyte. People complaining about Kiadamundi's birthday being wrong. It was a dog whistle for them being upset that the show was led by a black female and had too many women in it, right? Because women and black people, women and brown people in general, scare racists. And they scare bigots. And I'm sorry, if you're somebody out there that has legitimate gripes, you're going to have to put a disclaimer in your shit when you post it. You are, at least as far as I'm concerned. Maybe you think that's unfair, but you know what? Life isn't always fair. And there's a lot of unfair shit going on in the world right now, especially in the world of social media. So if you're somebody that has legitimate issues with this show, you better make damn clear that you're not a racist and you're not a bigot before you post that shit. And seriously, don't post the same lazy shit that they have been posting. Because all the arguments fall flat. First of all, the whole idea that Riri Williams is a Mary Sue. Absolutely not. Especially not after the 3rd episode. She screws up hard. Really, really hard. In fact, to the point where, like, when you watch a show, and I'm at that point now in life where when I watch movies and shows, I've seen too much. I've seen too much and I think too much with respect to plot lines and with respect to character development. I can predict precisely what's going to happen. Did I know Rampage was dead? Yeah, I did. Absolutely. But of course, anybody that's watched enough of these shows, watched enough of television and movies in life, you know that, yeah, he's probably done for because he's a loose end in that regard, right? And loose ends never stay alive. Loose ends either end up in the hospital almost dead and die later, or they die, right? And as soon as he was gone, as soon as his Hood, Parker, and everybody was like, okay, we're replacing him with Riri, because we need her in the suit. I'm like, yeah, it's only a matter of time before he's dead. And I figured that it would do exactly what it did, which, this whole idea, like, this is a case of another situation of a superhero, a budding superhero, a comic character that is in over their head and doesn't realize it, right? They think that they can do things benevolently, even though they're doing illegal things, right? We've seen this time and time again. So many movies, so many shows, countless examples of somebody that has a good heart, somebody that they're in a good place, right? But they're walking a road to hell that is paved with good intentions. And that is precisely what Riri is doing in this show. Kicked out of MIT, because she was essentially selling answers to MIT projects to fund her own experiments and her own research into building a better suit and into upgrading her tech, right? So she's looking at this from an economic standpoint. And anybody, especially a black woman in Chicago, raised in Chicago, would look at this from an economical standpoint. Someone her age, right? Like, you see Tony Stark. You see all of the power, all of the money that he had at his disposal, right? And come on. We saw this from the beginning, right? Any of us that have watched the MCU from the beginning, we saw the power of Tony Stark. And even back then, I remember people were making comparisons between him and Bruce Wayne now that we knew and cared who Tony Stark was, because before 2008, barely anyone did. I mean, I won't say no one because someone did, but, there were 3 Iron Man fans. in 2007. And since 2008, there's a ton of Iron Man fans, right? And many of them probably have still never read an Iron Man comic. But either way, we all looked at Tony Stark and we said, wow, look at all that money. Look at all that influence. Look at all that, what he has, the capability, the robots and the Malibu house and all that, right? He's got all of this capital to do whatever the hell he wants. He can build that suit however he wants, right? And that's what we saw. That's how we saw a privileged individual with money, right? It's almost like without saying it out loud, even though he kind of did, because there's that one line in Avengers where, Cap is like, big man in a suit of armor, take that away, what have you got? And he's like, genius, millionaire, playboy, philanthropist, right? Isn't that what he said? I'm pretty sure that's what he said. But at any rate, he made allusions to the fact that he had a shitload of money. And so the idea of, okay, how somebody from the inner city with no money do the same thing? And Riri, to her credit, had the benefit of the Wakandans to help her advance her tech in Wakanda Forever. That's why it was awesome that they, brought her into that film and introduced her character into the MCU through that lens, right? But now she's on her own. Now she's at MIT. Now she's, under the fellowship. She's still got to figure out a way to advance her tech, and there's only so much that MIT can, provide her. So yeah, she ends up selling her stuff on the black market, as far as like trying to get ahead. And she's not doing it for nefarious reasons. She's not doing it for greed. She's doing it to try and advance her projects. She gets caught. She gets expelled. She's got to go home, hat in hand. And I mean, all of that, I saw that coming too, right? She steals the suit that, her own suit. She flies home under an AI that was... The minute she logged into the AI with her MIT password, I'm like, that shit's going to shut down in mid-flight because she just got expelled. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Unfortunately, she landed safely, right? Suit was in tatters, had to repair it, but yeah, she had to come home hat in hand because MIT drummed her out. And her obsession with trying to build the suit, right? And she won't fully admit why she wants to build the suit. She won't fully admit throughout this entire series, so far through these 3 episodes, what her motivation is for building the suit, why she wanted to do it in the first place. Like, this is the evolution of hero, if you will, right? And we know that it's within her. We know it's something that is in her innate being, right? And she hasn't quite figured it out yet. She doesn't know quite how to personify precisely what it is that she's doing and why she is so obsessed with this suit. But she's building to that, right? This is called character development and character progression. She's building to that, and by the time this series is over, we should be able to know that from her. She should know that as a character. But of course, as she's trying to fund her own upgrades, she gets in with the wrong crowd. This dude Parker, otherwise known as the Hood, and his gang, right? I don't remember seeing this gang that he had in any of the trailers or TV spots or whatnot. Maybe, there's probably, wasn't there a second or third trailer? I didn't watch it. I honestly did not watch it because I've been in Superman mode because DC is my preference. But either way, it doesn't matter. This gang that he's got, all these other individuals, right? So this whole idea is that they're pulling off these tech heists, to really hit the 1%ers that are, screwing over the little guy. Okay, all right, you know what? Noble Robin Hood efforts, but, they are getting rich off of it in that regard. So it's like, a more personal form of it. Instead of robbing from the rich and giving to the poor outwardly, they're giving to themselves in that regard. Okay, all right, modern day version of that, inner city version of that. Okay, not an issue, right? But obviously this was going to go wrong because the whole idea is Riri thinks that she can control this. She thinks that she can benevolently make this work for her and not get in too deep. And you already know it's going to go wrong. You already know, and you already have an idea of how it's going to go wrong, especially when she gets this idea of, okay, I need to steal a piece of the Hood and figure out exactly what it is that I'm dealing with here with Parker as far as his magic and his ability to bend bullets and turn invisible and whatnot. And the fact that she decided to try and do this during one of their heists, it's like, yeah, no, you're gonna screw this up. Everything that went wrong in that 3rd episode, yeah, it was, I mean, it went so wrong. She triggered the alarm. She almost got the whole team killed. She did get his brother killed, and that's one of the complaints, right? The whole thing about, she left his brother to die. Yeah, because he was gonna kill her. He was going to kill her. It was her or him, and that dude was unhinged in the first place. I know that we're supposed to feel empathy for John, Parker's brother, because he is worried about Parker, and he knows that this stuff is whatever's going on with him, with the scales and the tattoos or whatever, the marks that are on his back, and whatever the Hood is doing to him, whatever type of personal vendetta he's on, John is concerned about it consuming him. But he's also off the deep end. He smashed what's her name's clown? He's the explosives nutso. Smashed her face into the table when she was playing around with the hood. It's like, but dude, what the hell? Seriously. But I love how Riri wouldn't back down from him, and he's like, you better step back, little girl. And he's like, or what? It's like, no, don't be calling her little girl. And that's something, this show absolutely identifies that we're going to give agency to the black woman. We're not going to depower her. She's going to struggle. She's going to have issues, but we don't need to embarrass her. We don't need to delegitimize or dehumanize her whatsoever, and they do not. Not in this show. And of course, that's what happens when the showrunner is a black woman. That's what happens when the executive producer is Ryan Coogler. And here we go. An ultimate eventuality from Representation Matters is this has come up time and time again in Marvel, and it's one of the things that I do have to give Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige credit for, is that when it does come to their minority creatives, right, specifically the black creatives, they let them cook. They do. They've let Ryan Coogler cook twice, and it's made them nearly $2 billion, right? They let Taika Waititi cook with his Thor movies, and he certainly is not white. He's a non-white individual. He's a minority. But yeah, despite my feelings on Thor Ragnarok or Thor Love and Thunder, they have let him cook, and now here they are letting Jenica Hodge cook as well. This is what happens when you allow minority creatives to cook. You produce things that generate this type of audience, that generate this type of success, if you will, or this type of creativity, this type of strength, right? And again, even though I don't care for the Thor movies, there are others that do, right? There are plenty of others that do. But in the case of this, right, with respect to black creatives, this is what we've got, right? We've got what Ryan Coogler has brought us, and now we've got what Jenica Hodges brought us, executive produced by Ryan Coogler, and it's got the same energy, it's got the same spirit, it's got the same respect for the culture. It's there. Listen, anytime, you know what, this popped into my head during the first episode, that montage where she was rebuilding the suit, and all of a sudden, here comes Sinner Man by Nina Simone. It's like, no, don't play around. Don't play around with that particular song. If you're going to use Sinner Man by Nina Simone, use it right. And of course, I'm being very subjective here. It's all subjective. But that I feel very strongly about that song, and very strongly about Nina Simone, right? Same with using Shaka Khan in the second episode. Don't use that lightly. This show does not. This show's choices are deliberate with respect to soundtrack, with respect to setting, with respect to characterization. Everything is deliberate, and you see it. And so far, job well done. I mean, seriously, this is one of the stronger shows in MCU television without question. And through 3 episodes, it checks all of the boxes of consistency that I think any of us would look for with any of these TV series, right? It is tonally consistent. Okay, there are lighter moments, but then there are heavier moments, more emotional moments, more serious moments, right? The PTSD that Riri is clearly suffering from with respect to how her stepdad and her friend Natalie got killed in the drive-by, right? At the shop, like all of the emotional elements, everything in here is balanced extremely well, written strongly and organically, right? The one-liners and the quips and the stuff that we're accustomed to hearing in the MCU, even in some of the shows, even not there, right? This is strong material. This stronger. Look, when I did my MCU TV catch-up episode of this show a few weeks ago, or it was last week rather, one of the things that I realized is my benchmark for the strength of Marvel Cinematic Universe television is Secret Invasion. Are you better or worse than Secret Invasion? Because Secret Invasion right now, as of the Marvel shows that I have watched, is at the bottom of the list. It is. And again, I don't like talking about things that I dislike. I did do a review of Secret Invasion. I don't dislike the show. I think it's I think there's a lot of missed opportunities, subjectively speaking, with respect to that show, and I think a number of people agree with me, but that's my baseline with respect to MCU TV. Secret Invasion. Is this show better than Secret Invasion? Yes, by a lot. Absolutely. In fact, right now through 3 episodes, I am tempted. Where am I tempted to put this show? Well, I'm tempted to put this show in the category of Falcon and Winter Soldier, in the category of Hawkeye, and in the category of Ms. Marvel, Moon Knight, and Daredevil Born Again, right? Those are like my top shows. Those are the shows that I really enjoy. Like one of the shows I got caught up on, Echo. I think so far this show is better than Echo. I do, and I liked Echo. I liked Echo for what it was. But to me, there's more, there's a bit more meat on the bones so far with respect to the character development here and listen, the representation matters, and all of the minority representation, it's just as good, if not stronger, than Echo was. Echo was phenomenal, and this is phenomenal in this respect as well. And that's something, again, that I tell you, I can appreciate. I can very much appreciate and give Marvel Studios credit where credit is due with respect to how they have allowed these minority creatives to cook. Like how they have allowed them to put together these shows and make them real and do lots of creative things. Like I love how this show is shot. Like the title cards for Ironheart. I love that. Fantastic the way they do it as far as the title card for each episode. Very innovative, very like inventive in that regard. He had the dollar bills in the last episode. Had the rubble or the parts and pieces from her suit when she crashed in the very first episode. The street sign in the second episode. Oh, it's all great. It's all creative. I love how it's shot. The very person when they go steady cam and they want to put you in the middle of the action because the idea is you're at ground level with these characters, right? These are working class characters that are trying to make a living and do what they're going to do, and they're all quirky and they've all got their own issues inherently, but they're all part of the 99%, not the 1%. Tony Stark was a 1%er, okay? And we know, like I said, we know this. We know this from the beginning. We haven't held it against him because he had good intentions, but he also walked a road to hell that was paved with good intentions many, many times in his MCU career. And Riri is doing no different. She absolutely is doing the same thing, and it will be very intriguing to see how the last 3 episodes of this show go with respect to the trouble that she has created now. My goodness. And they basically, again, it's the age old story of character getting in over their head because they think they can do an illegal thing benevolently and it doesn't work out whatsoever. And now she's in a much bigger mess than she was when this all started. And here's a great opportunity to talk about the cast of this show. Dominique Thorne, phenomenal. I mean, she basically, the character that she established in Wakanda Forever, she continues, and it's not a case where she's putting the show on her back because she's got a good supporting cast. She does, but I really like when shows like this take off because we're talking about relative unknowns, right? Dominique Thorne has not been in a ton. I mean, yes, she was in Judas and the Black Messiah, but how many of you have seen Judas and the Black Messiah? I have. Really good movie. But either way, she's been in that and she was in Wakanda Forever. She doesn't have a lot of credits. This is like the beginning of her career, if you will, but she has absolutely made this character her own in live action, and she does a very strong job with it, playing a strong yet vulnerable, real, organic black woman, right? A black woman with agency, a black woman with intelligence and talent and capability and confidence, but also, like I said, displaying a vulnerability. There are definitely points where you feel for her and you feel for what she's going through because it's relatable. You can understand, like from a working class perspective, she is trying to do the right thing. She is trying to do right by herself, and she is trying to build something that she thinks will be beneficial to put herself on the map. And, she's growing into the idea that it's going to be beneficial in general to become a hero in that regard, right? That's what we're seeing is the ascension of her character into being a hero. And it's something that she got a taste of in Wakanda Forever, thanks to the Wakandans. But, seeing the evolution of her character, seeing the growth, seeing the organic nature of her character, it's very well done. And Dominique Thorne, I've seen the clips. They've talked about, the how she was a no-brainer. They called nobody else for this because of her test audition. She auditioned for the part of Shuri, for people who don't know. She auditioned to be Shuri in Black Panther, obviously lost that role to Letitia Wright, but they went back to that audition of her and Chadwick Boseman, which of course we've seen that footage. They've shown it. It pops up on the internet all over the place and gets us all emotional all over again for Chadwick Boseman. May he rest in peace. But the idea of she was already identified as a strong actor for this cast and crew, and obviously bring her back, right? Obviously get her involved in the MCU, get her involved in our corner, the black corner, if you will, of the MCU as Riri Williams. Phenomenal, outstanding. I have no complaints. I have no complaints about how she's playing this character so far. She is outstanding, and I like the supporting cast. I really do. And it was one of those things where watching the trailers initially, I did think of Anthony Ramos's Parker as like, another version of the Stranger, and I likened that relationship, between Manny Jacinto's character in The Acolyte with Amandla Stenberg's character in The Acolyte. I did think of it as another version of that, but it's different. It is different. Parker is definitely not a mentor for Riri, not in the slightest in that regard. So that personification is very different, especially with the gang being involved, and she has her own motivation. She doesn't need a mentor at this point. She's looking for funding, right? And it's very clearly defined what her motivations are personally and what she's trying to do with respect to upgrading and rebuilding her suit, right? And it's also clear, as muddied and as many mysteries as there still are, it is clear what Parker, on some level, at least on the surface, is trying to do. You don't necessarily understand the underlying nature, but you can kind of guess that he's got some personal connection, some personal vendetta to these one percenters that he is trying to hurt. And that's where all of these heists and all of this robbery and all this illegal stuff is coming into play. And he's trying to do it under the guise of, hey, under the guise of benevolence, but he still goes along with the whole, hey, even good people do bad things. Everybody does bad things, regardless of, the special people do bad things at some point in time. And there's a degree of truth to that, but of course he goes overboard, way overboard. And, whatever sympathy you might have for him, kind of lost when he starts killing people, right? Especially after you find out that Rampage is dead. And look, Eric Andre, like, you see a face like that. I mean, he's been in so many things, and the Eric Andre show I never watched on Adult Swim, but I've seen obviously clips and gifs and whatnot from it. Right, I've seen him in Big Bang Theory. He's been in that guy and a bunch of other things. You see him in the show, and you're like, wow, I didn't know he was going to be in this show. But then you understand really quickly he's not going to last long. And then once you find out he's dead, it's like, okay, no, Riri specifically did not want to do this. She specifically did not want to go to the dark side and do any nefarious shit, especially not kill people. So all that remorse that she's feeling for John's death because she let him suffocate in that greenhouse in the end of the third episode, all that remorse is like, well, you know what? That's you being human. That's you. That's the weight of all of this coming down on you. And it's not just that. It's also, and that was even organic too. When all of it comes crashing down, and when she realizes what has happened, and when she realizes that she let a guy die, she screwed up, nearly got the whole rest of the team killed, even though she got what she came for as far as the piece of the hood. The fact that she left the biotech there that Ezekiel gave her, and we'll get to him in a second for a few reasons, but the fact that the realization of just how badly she screwed up. A guy is dead on her watch. She lied and said, oh, he's already dead. No, he was still moving. You lied and let him suffocate because you were trying to save your own ass in that regard, right? And the fact that she's now left evidence at the scene that will connect directly back to Ezekiel and screw all of that up, right? Like, just the way that she reacted, she was just like, no, 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 no. Like, she just starts saying that out loud. And it's like, wow, that we've been there, right? Any one of us has been there where it's just like the realization of how badly you have screwed things up, how horrible your mistakes have been, and now you are blood-curdling, terrified of whatever the ramifications are going to be because you don't know. You're thinking of every worst-case scenario in your head, and that's why when Natalie asks her at the end of the episode, are you okay? The last line is, no. No, I am not. No, you're not okay. You screwed up. You are in really, really deep shit by the time these 3 episodes are over. And it is very compelling, and it is very organic, and it is very relatable, and it is realistic. For as realistic as a show set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe can be, love the way that Thorne played that. And given everything else that she's been dealing with in this series, especially the PTSD from her stepdad and her friend being killed, like all of that, like that's where the ultimate empathy for her comes from. You know what her motivations are. You know she's not evil. You know she's not trying to do the wrong thing. You know she's going to get in over her head. And boy, did this really get in over her head. Massively. Now, as far as the rest of this cast, I already talked about Anthony Ramos as Parker. He's got the sinister motivations, and he's playing it well, from his perspective. And you want to know what the mystery is. You're getting a bit of more of a glimpse of it. There's voices. It's something with respect to some mysticality, and it has something to do with the one percenters, right? And only he and his brother John knew what the deal was, right? We're going to get into it, and they'll probably reveal that at some point in the last 3 episodes. Okay, how about everybody else? Well, let's talk about Lyric Ross for a second. This is the actress who plays Natalie. Both Natalie Washington, who died in the original drive-by shooting, and also Natalie, the AI, and I like how this went down. I saw somebody before watching Ironheart. I saw somebody on social media claim that this was creepy. And here's the thing: I understand why people would consider the whole AI thing to be creepy, but when you realize what it was that she was trying to do, and she even explained this out loud for people like me that didn't quite get it. When she hooks up the electrodes to her brain, and that 4 hours goes by, in terms of what the suit being upgraded, right? She was trying to create an AI like Griot. Griot, of course, her motivation and her inspiration coming from Wakanda Forever, which and I really love that in the MCU because that was one of the things that was established at the end of the first Black Panther film was that hey, Wakanda is going to outreach. We're going to have the outreach programs to the rest of our brothers and sisters in the mainland of the United States of America that have been persecuted for generations, and we are going to extend our technological and our resources, our technological capacity and our resources to them. And Riri is following in those footsteps. She is inspired by that. She is a product of that outreach, which is great. I love that. Again, that corner, the Ryan Coogler Black Panther corner of the MCU. I love the way that that is evolving in that regard. But in terms of Natalie, the idea that she hooked it up to the electrodes was trying to create Griot, and of course, what would happen? Of course, the program would latch on to the strongest personality that she had that would help her, that would be an assistant to her, right? Like Stark had Jarvis, right? And she has Natalie. Of course, it was going to be her friend Natalie. Why wouldn't it be? And I have no idea if this is for the show or if that comes from the comics. I have not read an Ironheart comic. I don't know. Comic accuracy is not my job here, and it's not this show's job because, again, as I've said before, the MCU has been around for 17 years and has its own continuity, 17 plus years at this point, has its own continuity, and at this point, we need to accept that it's its own continuity. It makes its own rules, and when characters are adapted into it, whatever license is taken, it falls under the MCU's purview. They do what they do regardless of comic accuracy in that regard. So I love the acronym Neuro Autonomous Technical Assistant and Laboratory Intelligence Entity. That could have been thought of before. I don't know. Here, you know what? Here, let me click on the wiki. Natalie Washington Comics. Fictional character appearing in American comic books, created by Brian Michael Bendis. First appeared in Invincible Iron Man Volume 4. Neighbor of Riri Williams. Okay. So the drive-by killing, yes, that is from the comics. That actually did happen. And during the Iron Man 2020 storyline, Ironheart's armor possesses an AI version of Natalie Washington called Natalie. Okay, so that is from the comics. Okay, Jared. Jared, I'm pretty sure you were going to say something if you were going to clarify that, and I appreciate you on that one. But no, I looked this one up myself and proud of myself on that one. Anyway, the way that this is played in terms of it being like this AI counterpart, but it still has like Natalie's soul, or at least it feels like it's Natalie's soul, and it really throws Riri for a loop, and also her mother. Like it really, like when she revealed herself to her mother, and her mom's like, "Oh, but there was a scene." And again, this is what I'm talking about, right? Like the realism and the organic nature of this scene. There's a point where, you know, her mother talks to Riri about the creation of Natalie, and she just is really just effusive in praising her and how she captured Natalie's soul. And then she asks her that really heartbreaking question where she just looks at her and just very softly goes, "Can you make one for Gary?" And it just she wanted Gary back, right? And that was one of those where it's just like, oh, like that hits you. That absolutely hits you because of course that's what she would ask. She sees her daughter, who is a genius, build this incredible AI of her best friend that died in that shootout. And of course, selfishly or otherwise, she's going to ask, "Can you bring my husband back? Can you bring your stepfather back? Can you make one for me?" Right? And of course, Riri painfully has to tell her no, not only because she can't do it. Like it's literally because she can't do it. Like she doesn't know how. Like this was an accident. Like she did not intend for Natalie to be formed the way that she did. It was a complete happenstance in that regard. So she doesn't know how to build another one. She has no idea how to build a Gary, and it wouldn't work for her anyway because clearly the stronger anchor for her was Natalie, not Gary, right? And by the way, shout out to LaRoyce Hawkins. I am a LaRoyce Hawkins fan. Why? Because that's Prescott from Chicago PD, right? That's where I first saw him, and I think he's still in that show, if I'm not mistaken. I found out like that he was, after the episodes premiered on Tuesday. I saw a screenshot. Somebody mentioned that he was in it, or there was an article saying that he had been cast in it because that was the reveal, right? Like, oh, he's in this show, right? And he's in flashback form only because he's dead, but still, that was cool to see him in there. But yeah, just this show has a number of those emotional moments, right? Where like, and even the stuff between her and Natalie. And it's a case where, there's three characters in this show that over the course of these first three episodes, I'm like, okay, are they on Riri's side or not? Parker, it's like, okay, no, Parker, his motivations are going to be revealed to be nefarious as the Hood. It's just a question of what exactly the nefarious connection is. Okay. But I was also questioning Natalie. It's like, okay, Natalie's an AI and she's being very overbearing and she's an AI. AIs are unpredictable. AIs are unpredictable in real life. They're certainly unpredictable in fake life, in film and television, and certainly in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. How can we gauge exactly what AIs are going to do, right? When they're unlatched, when they're, unhinged, if you will. And so I wasn't certain. I was not certain at first if Natalie was operating in the best interests of Riri. And then it became very clear, no, she is Riri's friend. The thing that sold me was when she started asking questions about Parker. When she started telling her, listen, you can't trust Parker. You've only known him for however long. He's asking you to do all these jobs. This is dangerous. And when she starts cohorting with her and like how they're going to get a piece of the Hood, like that's where I really came to like Natalie's character. It's like, okay, no, clearly you are on Riri's side and you will do anything to protect her as long as she lets you protect her. So I'm with Natalie on this, and the whole thing with the panic attack where she helped her breathe and like get that through. It's like, okay, no, Natalie is an ally. That is going to work out. The third person that I wasn't certain, in terms of their motivations, and I'm going to talk about him now, Ezekiel. Right? We first know him as Joe McGillicuddy, and it's like, yeah, they even say in the show, yeah, that's obviously a fake name. And yes, it was a fake name because he's actually Ezekiel Stain, right? And I love the reveal. The reveal was awesome, right? Because you find out that he had this tortured relationship with his dad, right? And that's where the whole bunker and everything comes from, right? And it didn't even occur to me. Like that was one my brain is trying to figure out, okay, who is it? It's somebody that we've met before. It's somebody that we know. Who is it? And it did not even occur to me that they would go all the way back to the first Iron Man film and make him Obadiah Stane's son. It's like, when you saw that bag, right, when she accidentally dropped the bag with his remains and he puts it on the counter and you just see Obadiah S. and it's like, oh, seriously, he's Stane's son. But it's a case where, because that's the thing. Especially when he when he got the confidence, he started to blackmail Riri, and he's like, "You're gonna help me do all this benevolent stuff, and you're gonna come at 6 o'clock, right?" Like that whole thing. I'm like, okay, is he gonna become a problem? Like, is he gonna become like another antagonist that Riri's gonna have to deal with? Is she gonna have to be fighting a couple different enemies at once? Well, not exactly, because we find out that his motivations are, I know the truth about my dad, and that's the other thing. I don't remember if this was disclosed in like a previous MCU movie or a show or a special episode or whatnot. I didn't realize that they lied about Stane's death, right? Because when she pulls up that headline about how he died in a horrible plane crash, I'm like, oh, that's not true. And of course, Ezekiel immediately says, nope, that's a lie. He died trying to kill Tony Stark. And he does actually say the term Ironmonger, which I don't even think that was used necessarily in the first film, but that's what he was, Ironmonger, right? With that suit that he had built with the bigger arc reactor, right? But so, like, all that connection there, and so the idea is that he wants to be nothing like his dad, right? He knows how horrible his dad was. Now you understand why he was kind of collecting all the black market tech. Well, a lot of it probably came from his dad's black market because his dad was selling black market stuff to, the wrong 10 rings, right? The fake 10 rings that we saw in the first Iron Man film that got retconned by Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Yeah, like all that, underground, like black market arms deals and whatnot that he was using to like keep Stark Industries, making weapons even when Tony didn't want to make weapons anymore, right? So Ezekiel is like, I don't want to be anything like my dad. And he's doing everything to like be benevolent about it, right? He's stealing the tech so that he can use it for benevolent means. And so now it's one of those cases where I can take him at his word. And it is cool, once again, to see our good buddy Alden Ehrenreich. And I call him our good buddy because here's the thing. I've seen Alden Ehrenreich in 3 things, and he was awesome in all 3 of them. The first thing I saw him in, obviously, Solo. I don't care what anybody says, Solo's a good movie. Solo is a higher to mid tier Star Wars film, and it's really only in the mid tier because there's only 11 Star Wars movies, but Solo was good. I enjoyed Solo. I did. And especially considering the tortured post-production nonsense that film went through, as far as firing their directors with 2 weeks left in principal photography, hiring Ron Howard to fix everything, and basically doing a Justice League, but it actually worked in that regard, like way better than Justice League did not in that regard. Like the way that they did that, like I really did dig Alden Ehrenreich as a young Han Solo in that movie. I thought it was great. Thought he was really awesome. So that's the first thing I saw him in. Second thing I saw him in was Brave New World. Brave New World was a 1-season adaptation on Peacock of the Aldous Huxley novel Brave New World from the 20s, one of the most seminal science fiction novels in history that I need to reread. I read it many, many years ago for a science fiction literature class in college. I want to reread it. But he was really good in that in that 1 season that they commissioned on Peacock. He was really awesome. Hannah John Kamen, another Marvel alum, was in that show as well. The third thing I saw him in was Oppenheimer. And he wasn't in Oppenheimer for a lot. And that movie has a huge cast. But he was good in Oppenheimer. So I'm always happy when Alden Ehrenreich, steps to the forefront and gets more roles. Because I do think he's a solid actor and should get more roles and whatnot in that regard. And if they ever did decide to, I know everybody's got their ideas on who should be, like if they decide to do Indiana Jones, younger movies, right, because Harrison Ford is aging out of it, right? Look, he worked well as Solo. He could work well as Indiana Jones, in my humble opinion. Whatever, it is what it is. But he's cool in this show. I like him. Like, he's meek and like kind of trying to be benevolent, but he's kind of sporadic and all over the place. And I have no idea how he's going to react, and who's going to come for him, now, once the evidence of his biotech is found at that greenhouse, because that dude is dead. Parker killed that CEO, right? Like, everything went wrong because Riri triggered the alarm trying to steal a piece of that hood. And I mean, she torpedoed the whole thing, and it screwed things up. And total improvisation, Parker just goes on a killing spree, kills the CEO, who was being a smug bastard in the first place, and then kills all the guards. And it's like, well, damn, you just left the body trail, and now this is escalated. You were just stealing shit. Now you've escalated to murder. How's the rest of the gang going to deal with this as well? Yeah, no, so much shit hit the fan at the end of this. You know what it reminded me of, truthfully? This popped into my head. It reminded me of Peacemaker. The first 3 episodes of Peacemaker, if you recall, they released them at the same time. And it was a case where, like, a lot of times when I feel like when we evaluate pilots, and Brett and I used to talk about this before when we on DCTV Squadcast over at Squadcast Media, we would talk about how most pilots aren't that strong, and it takes a couple of episodes for a show to get into its groove past the pilot. Rarely is the pilot so strong where it's like, ooh, wow. Like, I remember one of the best pilots that we saw was The Gifted. The Gifted had a phenomenal pilot. I never finished that show. At some point, I might want to go back and finish it because it's X-Men. Why the hell haven't I finished it? Also, why the hell haven't I watched Legion yet? Whatever, I digress. At any rate, I remember when Peacemaker first premiered, that first episode was like, okay, let's see how it goes. It wasn't until that the third episode of the show, like, that and remember, they released them all at once. That third episode, I was like, oh, okay. Now I get what this show is, right? It all made sense. It all fit into place. It's like, okay, now we can keep going. And so I understood at that point why they released those episodes all at once like that, right? And not that it was quite the same case here in terms of by the time we got to the third episode, I was like, oh, now I get what the show is. No, I got what the show was from the beginning. It's just that the way that third episode ended, it was like, oh, well, okay, you know what? This particular chapter has ended, and now we got a whole new chapter of batshittery that's going to launch in episodes 4, 5, and 6. Okay, here we go. So now we gotta wait a week we got to wait until next week, a little under a week, right? Because this premiered on Tuesday, and it'll the next three episodes will be next Tuesday. But no, this is I'm very much anticipating where this is gonna go. Because man, did shit hit the fan, and did everything go so horribly wrong, even more wrong than I thought it was going to go. Like I knew things were gonna go wrong, but man, did they go wrong. And now we got to see how Riri's gonna get out of this, and how what Parker's gonna do, because whatever magical force has been powering him, I think has pretty much ratted her out in terms of, oh, she lied to you, she killed John, right? So how's he gonna react to that? Especially, and how much more unhinged is he going to be now that John, who was kind of his sounding board, is dead, right? His brother is dead. And how's the gang going to react to everything that just happened? Like, there's a whole lot of variables. There's a whole lot of stuff that's like, oh, okay, let's see exactly where this goes. But it's compelling, it's energetic, it's organic, it's vibrant, it's, you know what, on its way to being iconic. Because seriously, this is really good. It was a really good show. I certainly enjoyed it. Not just for the representation matter reasons, but certainly for all the character development and all the moments that I've talked about. I feel like I've given enough examples that I think pretty much defy any of the bullshit criticism that we've seen of this show so far, and it is unfortunate, and I can't talk about this show, without bringing that up. I can talk about the show on its own merits, which I have, but I do have to address, I got to talk about these stupid controversies because it's not fair to this show. It's not fair to Chinika Hodge. It's not fair to Dominique Thorne. It's not fair to Anthony Ramos or anyone of this cast and crew. It's not fair to them at all that this shit is going on. You got these absolute wastes of space that are just, scared shitless of strong black women leading shows, scared shitless of women leading shows, scared shitless of minorities leading shows, and they gotta rear their ugly heads and try to ruin shit for the rest of us. I've already resigned myself to the notion that Ironheart is not going to get a second season. I would love for it to, depending on how this season ends, but the Riri Williams character, at least at this point, is someone, through Wakanda Forever and now these three episodes, is someone that I'd like to see their story continue even beyond whatever this arc ends up being, truthfully. And I do believe that part of the reason I talked about this in Flight Chat not too long ago. I do think that Marvel Studios is abandoning the Young Avengers idea, right? The idea that they originally started, that was going to involve Kate Bishop, that was going to involve Miss Marvel, that was probably going to involve Yelena Belova, and also, Ironheart, Riri Williams at some point, right? I do think that they are abandoning that idea. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that on some level they do decide to continue with that idea, but all the stuff that they're doing with Doomsday and Secret Wars and, RDJ as Doctor Doom, and then, whatever they're going to end up doing with the Uncanny X-Men, they better call them the Uncanny X-Men. I'm still putting that out in the universe. I feel like that's going to take center stage with respect to the future of the MCU beyond phase 5 and 6 in that regard, right? So I don't think, I think that more, from a business standpoint is what they'll tell you is why Ironheart's not going to get a second season. But I wish it would at this point, to see that character continue, right? And I know there's 3 more episodes to go in the show, but I do feel strongly about the representation aspect. And I've seen enough of these 3 episodes that I feel like Chinika Hodge, like, yes, you can continue on. They still have to stick the landing for this season. And maybe those 3 episodes will change my mind and I'll be like, I'm glad this was a miniseries. Maybe that will happen. But right now, I just think that this show is getting a bad rep. Similar to The Acolyte, similar to Batwoman on the CW that was review bombed right out the gate, similar to Captain Marvel, even though it made $1 billion, right? I just think that there's some real nefarious, racist, bigoted shit going on. And no, it's not everybody, but the racist and the bigots are being louder than everybody else, unfortunately, as far as social media is concerned. So that's a problem. And, I wish it wasn't befalling this show, but it doesn't surprise me that it is, sadly, but it's not going to stop me from watching it. It's not going to stop any of us from watching it and promoting it and from continuing to display to Marvel Studios that we do enjoy the show and that we do like when they allow their creatives to, roam free and do what they're going to do and basically, not just give them complete free reign, right? There's still some rules within the MCU that they got to follow as far as continuity and whatnot is concerned, but to be able to tell their own stories organically without, lording over them and being like, well, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to appeal to this audience, you got to appeal to that audience. No, Jenica Hodge is telling a story for a particular group of people, and she's highlighting black people. She's highlighting minorities in this show, and I like that. Of course I like that. Of course, I feel like there's far too little of that with respect to media in that regard. So yeah, I dig it. Absolutely dig this show. I figured I would. Again, it's another one of those cases where going into it, it's like I know I have enough interest, and this looks cool. I'm probably gonna dig it, and yes, I do. So far, I cannot wait to see what that second half of this inaugural season, this first season, perhaps mini series, if you will, is how it's all gonna end up, how it's all gonna shake out. Because man, what a way to hang us off a cliff, if you will, a couple of cliffs in that last episode. But yeah, great job so far. Looking forward to the rest of it next week. And that is going to do it for this week's episode of Flightbox. My spoiler filled, honest thoughts about the first 3 episodes of Ironheart. Thank you so much for listening to this show. Thank you so much for supporting the Flightcast. If you have seen the first 3 episodes of Ironheart and you want to get in on the discussion about it on Flight Chat this weekend, you know where to find me on Threads and on Instagram at the Flightcast. You can also comment on the posting for this episode at the Flightcast YouTube page. There's the Flightcast Facebook page. I'm also at Flightcast on BlueSky. And of course, I can be reached by email at ray@theflightcast.com. And don't forget, I'll be back here next week on Thursday to talk about the last 3 episodes of Ironheart on this very show, Flightbox. So until then, take care, stay safe out there, and I will see you all next time. Take it easy.